doing. We're getting them out. You have deep state bad people.
The swamp creatures are much deeper and much worse than we ever thought. And there is such a thing as the deep state. Who would think?
Drain the swamp. We're going to drain the swamp of Washington. It is time to drain the damn swamp.
He was lying. He added the most swamp dragons, the most alligators. He had the swampiest administration. We've never seen people get kicked out of service at the rate or for the rationales that happened with his administration. And what we are now seeing is absolutely, by definition, deep state deception, the likes of which red and blue will tell you they have never seen before. Yes, Chuck Grassley says investigations of members of Congress are nothing new. Yeah, but why? You don't investigate them in search of proof to show they did something wrong. You have proof they did something wrong, and then you continue to investigate. Well, these were subpoenas from a grand jury. There you have it. No, that's just ab initio. That's the beginning. But then you had the same people who were asked to do this say that they weren't getting any proof, and were told to continue. That's the part that matters. His own Department of Justice targeted his political opponents, including this House Intel Committee member.
I hope Trump supporters who fear Big Brother see that Donald Trump was the biggest brother we've ever seen in our country, who did weaponize this to go all the way down the stack into, the private communications of people he perceived as political opponents.
Trump's like Nixon. Trump's like Nixon. Don't do that to Nixon. Trump is worse. He didn't use the DOJ like this. This makes Watergate look like jaywalking. What else don't we know about what they were up to? He was in office for 4 years. So the question is, how do we find out and what should happen? That's the question. But here's what we know, that it should have a period at the end of it. Trump was never going to drain the deep state. He was never going to drain the swamp. Play with your metaphors. It doesn't matter. He didn't mean them. He was the worst, and it is demonstrable because we've never seen anything like this. All right? Now, let's get a fair reckoning on it from a better mind than mine. Former Attorney General under President George W. Bush, Michael Mukasey. You'll remember, he knows Bill Barr. He put in a good word for him back in the confirmation phase, and he joins us tonight. First, Mike, personal before political. I've missed you. It's good to see you looking well, and I hope the family is well.
They're well, thanks very much, and I've missed you too.
All right. You don't mean it the way I do, but that's okay. Now, let me ask you this, for Mary G. When Bill Barr says, I have no recollection of any of these things that his own high-placed staff says that he was at the center of, what are we to make of that kind of I can't recall?
What you're to make of the statement is that the subpoena was issued before he got there. You're saying that he was at the center of these things. What he was at the center of, as far as I know, was insisting that leak investigations generally, not necessarily these, but leak investigations generally that had been languishing, as to which there was a great deal of pressure from people in the Defense Department, people in the intelligence community, who are severely hurt by national security leaks, that those be prosecuted and pursued. And so he got somebody to take a look to see which were viable and which were not. As far as I know, there's absolutely no indication that he was riding herd on these particular matters or these particular congressmen.
Well, you do know there is an indication because there's New York Times reporting that says exactly the opposite. The guy he brought in was from New Jersey and had no experience with these kinds of things. The premise that it was based on national security concerns, they declassified a lot of this information as they went along, so they took away their own premise. But we have interviews in the reporting of people who said they told the AG, Mike, that there's nothing here, and he said, reopen, keep going.
He said to pursue cases generally. The notion of bringing in somebody from New Jersey with no experience, I did something very similar when we had a problem with the destruction of the CIA tapes. I brought in somebody from within the department, but outside Washington, outside the hothouse of Washington, to see whether there was anything there. He did that with leak cases generally, not necessarily with these.
Well, now, do you know that, or is that your take from the reporting?
that's my take from the reporting, and it's my take from what I know of what was pending at the time, which were a lot of other cases other than these.
Right. But in the reporting, it doesn't say what you're saying right now. It says that these were specific. They wanted Schiff. They wanted Swalwell. They wanted former Obama people. They found nothing, yet kept looking. I mean, just at the scale and the scope of this, Mike, have you ever seen anything like it before?
I have not seen any investigation similar to this. On the other hand, there are many investigations that happened for the first time and the last time. This wouldn't be the first time. If there were in fact leaks that appeared to originate in Congress, there's every reason for those to be pursued. Understand that leaking information isn't a game. Information is kept secret for a reason. And people who disclose it essentially are deciding that regardless of whether the information should be kept secret or not, they have their own agenda. They know better than the people who are charged with deciding whether information should be disclosed, and they're going to go ahead with their own agenda. That's unlawful, whether it's done by Edward Snowden or it's done by Eric Swalwell.
Yeah, but the problem is it wasn't done. They found no proof, yet they kept looking and expanding. They kept adding and invading. And they were told by staffers, some of whom are at high levels and still there, so we're going to hear from them, Mike, who told Barr and others,
I'm sure we will.
There is nothing here. We are uncomfortable continuing this. And they were told to continue. And that Barr eventually had to go tell...
That's not what the...
Yes, sir. That's what the reporting says. But
that's not what the reporting says. No,
it is what the reporting says.
I don't read it the same way, but go ahead.
How do you read it, Mike?
I read it as they haven't been told to basically make sure that leak cases get pursued, which I did unsuccessfully, and would have done in Bill Barr's place had I been there.
Yeah, you would have done them, but you wouldn't have done them like this, I would think, seeing how you're someone I respect and lean on as a mentor, that you would have said, show us where the proof is of where the leaks may have come from, and let's go from there. Here, they never had any proof on any of these guys. Go ahead.
I don't know what proof they had. I don't know what reason they had to believe that information was coming from them or from people on their staffs. Nor do you. Nor did the reporters who wrote the story in the New York Times.
That is true. These were grand jury subpoenas. I actually said that up at the top. They had to have something to get the subpoena, but we both know that this is a very easily manipulated bar for any good prosecutor, and this isn't even like an indictment. This is a different standard. And I'm not saying they didn't have anything, but I'm saying that
prosecutors.
Mike, why am I asking?
Mike,
here, let me just make it clear why I'm chasing on this. I'm not bad-mouthing prosecutors, okay? They'll be able to speak for themselves. What I'm saying is...
No, you're bad-mouthing Bill Barr. I understand you're not bad-mouthing
I am, and here's why. I can't believe he doesn't recall anything like this. It is beyond reasonableness that he would remember nothing about only things that are politically damaging. I can't remember Trump ever asking me about going after anyone personally. We both know how that man dialogues. We both know what he was trying to do here. Here's why I care. Co-equal branch of government.
Yes, and we also both know that he pushed back repeatedly on Trump, that he said there was no reason to doubt the election, that he refused to indict Jim Comey, that he refused to pursue a case against McCabe, that he refused to do any number of things.
He is the only man to give Jim Comey second place to abusing the platform. When he took to microphone and completely dissembled the reality of the Mueller report, Mike, and he did it out of political convenience, he took a step that no attorney general ever had taken or should take. So I do not see him as Captain Candor.
That is absurd.
You know what he did with that memo. You know that he shorthanded it and tried to make it seem like it wasn't what it was.
Absolutely not. He stated the conclusions in the memo, including the part about not being able to exonerate the president, which is a standard that's unknown to the law, as you know. But nonetheless, he stated it. He also checked with Mueller to see whether there was a problem with what he had done.
And Mueller complained about what was happening. What was he supposed to do? He wasn't in control. He was working for Barr.
Right. No, he was working for you and me.
Come on. You know who was on top of him, and that's why he came out and did it that way. Look, all I'm saying is, Mike, this is about a co-equal branch of government. This is about going after the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee because Trump didn't like him, and going after the guy's family, going after minors, and never finding anything, closing the case, and then being told to restart it. This doesn't look bad to you, Mike?
Chris, prosecutors have subpoenaed the records of the families of people they're looking at to find out whether whether the family's accounts are being used.
True, I agree.
You'll remember that a congressman from New York who had a little sex scandal was using his wife's computer.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, absolutely. I remember the Wiener thing very well. What I'm talking about is the House Intel guy.
Okay.
They found nothing, and they kept expanding and invading. And look, at a minimum, you got to see what the Inspector General says, but we got to have these people who are in charge of it. We got lucky here that they're still at the DOJ, which means they can't opt out of cooperation that well as long as there's nothing criminal that's brought up, which I don't see happening at this point. But would you agree with me at least that this is something that has to be unearthed and revealed because it may be one of the biggest abuses of power we've seen?
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to take a good long look. And I also believe that we will find that an investigation was pursued to a dry hole, as many investigations are. But the notion that somehow they were trying to intimidate a member of Congress is ridiculous.
No, I didn't.
You
I
don't
never said that.
intimidate somebody by keeping an investigation secret.
I never said it. I never said
Others
it.
have.
Not me. Deal with one dope at a time, Mike. Deal with the dope in front of you. I've never said anything like that. But I will end on this.
Okay.
The predicate for this is that, hey, this was national security. And as you said, that's very important. But here's the problem. The risk of contacts with the Russians. Where's the risk of contacts with Russians that never happened? And where is the risk of a national security threat with dialogues that you had being declassified during the period of assessment and probing and investigating? You're declassifying the same information
That was
that you say is the risk.
It was declassified. It was declassified after the fact. What it confirmed was something the Russians probably already knew, which was that the government had a wire on Kislyak. Having them knowing it and having it confirmed, the two are very different things.
There are, but I would argue the timing.
That was what was confirmed, and it was confirmed.
I would argue the timing. This happened in
Confirmed
2020
afterwards.
when they were still looking at it and Barr was going to reopen it. That's when the Intel guy declassified it and caused a little bit of a problem for the continuation of this. I'm just saying it doesn't look bad. It doesn't smell bad. It is bad. This is one of those situations where if there were a good explanation, Bill Barr would have it.
So
And
you've
Trump
already
would be
reached
quiet.
you've already reached the conclusion of the you've already reached the conclusion of the investigation that you say has to go on.
No, not at all. I'm saying that
You've
the
already reached the
idea.
verdict. It
No,
is
sir.
bad. That's what you just said.
Listen,
That's what you just said.
Here's my take on it. Let me give you the context of what I'm saying. This is not a trial.
I got your take on it in your opening.
This is not, and it's a smart one. And
I'll
you
say.
would give the same one if he wasn't your buddy, Mike. I understand why you believe in Bill Barr.
He's not my. Understand something. He's not my buddy. I've never been in his house. He's never been in my house. I admire his public career. I admired it before. I still do.
All right, I'll give you that clarification. You've never been in each other's houses.
He did
But
things.
you were flattering
He did
him.
things.
He did things what? Last word to you, sir.
I was accurate. Pardon?
Last word to you, sir.
I was accurate in my description of him. When Trump wanted things done, if he thought the law required it, he did it, even though people attacked him for doing Trump's bidding. When Trump wanted things done that he thought should not be done, he didn't do them.
Well, this will be the ultimate testament to that proposition. What he did here and didn't do and why. And former AG Mike Mukasey, I don't think I'd ever be talking to you about doing anything like this. And it's one of the reasons I need you on this show. I respect where you're coming from and why. I wish you well, and I look forward to seeing you again.
Happy to. I wish you well, too. Thank you.
Take care. He doesn't like me, but he knows I love him. Look, you have to argue through any political reckoning on this. It looks bad. Where's the presumption of innocence? This isn't a trial. This isn't a trial, okay? In light of these facts, the burden is on Bill Barr and the people who did this to tell us how the New York Times and CNN and Common Sense has this wrong. So let's pick this up with two more valuable minds. One of them knows exactly what it's like to be publicly targeted by Trump. Former FBI agent Peter Strzok, who once worked on the Russia investigation, and a former acting AG. How does he think the DOJ's Inspector General should be going on about this? And what do these two guys think about what they just heard from former AG Lucas? Next.